to introduce our next speaker, Grand Chief Derek Nepenak from the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, who will speak on the relationships between Indigenous communities in the city of Winnipeg. I'm a bit short, so I'll keep adjusting the mic here. There you
Miigwech Leah Bujuna Denewe Maganatok Nibin Makwan Dijnakas Makwan Totem. My name is Derek Nepenak, Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, and it's been an honor to accept the invitation to be here this evening to address the candidates for the office of mayor in our wonderful city here, the city of Winnipeg, Manitoba. For thousands of years, Indigenous nations of our people have gathered in this spot. They've come together to form vast trade networks all across the Turtle's Back. For thousands of years, we've spoken the language that you just heard me speak in. And what I did when I came up here is I said, hello, my friends, my family, all my relations. My name is Summer Bear, and I'm Bear Clan. And that's the way we introduce ourselves, and that's the tradition of thousands of years here in these ancestral lands. And I hope that, as we move forward, we begin to recognize that and we start to reinvigorate that much more, especially as we're in an age of renewal amongst our own people. This age of renewal that we're in means a renewed effort towards economic trade and commerce development right here in the city of Winnipeg. And when we talk about that, we're talking about urban reserve creation. We're talking about the establishments of trusts, the trusts that vest in the benefit into the beneficiaries, which are our children, for the next generations, for the next several hundred years perhaps. We're looking at treaty land entitlements and urban reserve creation that's happening among us right now. I commend communities like Long Plain First Nation that has created the first urban reserve here in Winnipeg. One of many that need to happen here in the city of Winnipeg. And that is, I think, one of the priorities that we have to look at when we're looking at who we're going to select for a mayor. I'm encouraging all Indigenous people who have the ability to get out and vote, to get out there and vote. We have, of course, our own sovereignty, our own jurisdictions, our own self-determining efforts, our own self-government. But at the same time, we do hold the franchise to go out and vote and to have an influence and control over who we put in municipal level, provincial level, and federal politics. And I strongly, strongly encourage our people to come out in strong numbers this time. I think it's the way to go. We live in an integrated society. We don't live in silos where our interests are pursued independently and individually. We live together and we live amongst one another. And I think that's the key when we look at what's happening here in Winnipeg. It's been, I guess, about 40 years or so since the Nepenak family started hanging around these parts again. After being confined to places like the Pine Creek First Nation, the Pine Creek Indian Band, the Skowhegan First Nation, the Nepenak family started coming back into the urban centers where people started to congregate in the early 1970s. Coming out of the residential school experience, a lot of our people were coming into the urban environment seeing there's no services, there's no programs, there's no resources for our people to come out of our communities. And it's been said that some of our people lived like refugees in our own ancestral lands, creating crisis in our families and losing many, many people along the way. And my family is no stranger to the losses in the streets of this city, as are many families who are experiencing the grief and loss of this very difficult time we're living in. And what I'm trying to say here right now, I think, is that a lot of our people that are living here, they don't necessarily want to live here in the urban environment, but there's not a lot of choices in our communities because there's thousands of homes that need to be built in our reserve communities, and that's not happening. There's economic development that has to happen in our communities, and that's not happening. So people come here as a refuge, looking for opportunity, and oftentimes tragedy results, unfortunately. We have a unique opportunity in the discussion we're having here tonight to change the way we look at things, to build stronger community. And I do believe that in light of recent tragedies and recent attention that's being paid to the tragedies that happen far too often in the streets of cities across the country and here in Winnipeg as well, that we have a unique opportunity to really turn the page and become the leaders in North America that we are in integrating and moving past the racism that plagues a lot of the things that we witness each and every day in our city. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I wish the best for the candidates who are here. It's not a very easy thing to step up, and put your name in for a leadership run. I know how difficult it is. I've been in many, not just at this level, but at home too. It's very hard on the family. I hope you're all taking care of yourselves that way as well. And recognizing all those family supports that are here for the candidates too, looking out for them each and every day. We're all one big family here, and we hope to see a good outcome in this election. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I look forward to a good evening. Miigwech.
Thank you very much, Grand Chief Nepenak. Next, I'd like to call on stage Councillor Dan Vandel. Dan Vandel, as you know, has been a city councillor in Winnipeg for many years, and he's here to speak today about the City of Winnipeg and relationships with Indigenous communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Tansi, Bonjour, bonsoir, mes amis. Good evening. It's a great honor to be here. First of all, I want to congratulate the Social Planning Council and the Aboriginal Council for putting this forum together. It is the most important issue, the relationship between the City of Winnipeg and our Indigenous population, our urban Indigenous population. In my mind, it is the most important issue facing the city in the future. Why is it important to have a good relationship between our urban Indigenous people and the City of Winnipeg? I think very simply, it's important because Winnipeg is the Aboriginal capital of Canada. We have more principally Métis and First Nation people living in the city today than there are living in the Northwest Territories, in Yukon and Nunavut combined. And when you think of the mass, just the vastness of the land that's involved in that and the density, you realize that really is quite amazing. And although our city is growing faster today than it has in the last 30 years, we are still not what would be considered a fast growth city. We're not Toronto, we're not Vancouver, we're not Calgary. Nonetheless, the fastest growing demographic in the City of Winnipeg today are young Aboriginal people, principally Métis and First Nation youth. It's estimated that by 2020 there will be 100,000 Aboriginal people living in the City of Winnipeg. And with that comes very significant challenges as well as incredible opportunities. I want to look at the challenges first, and the challenges are all rooted in Canada's history. Rooted in the history of colonization, of racism, of residential schools, of oppression, of, I don't think it's too strong a word, two words to say cultural genocide. You can't practice your spirituality or speak your language or be with your families. That is cultural genocide, and that we are experiencing the remnants of that today in our city, and that's a huge challenge. Aboriginal citizens today in Winnipeg and across Canada are more likely to be victims of all sorts of abuse than non-Aboriginal, whether it's spousal abuse, alcohol abuse, solvent abuse, and just general violent abuse to everybody. Our citizens, Aboriginal citizens, especially young people, are more likely to commit suicide than non. Our citizens, Aboriginal citizens, are overrepresented in our jails, our prisons, our child welfare system. The numbers are actually quite startling, than non. And of course, our citizens, our Winnipeggers, are overrepresented in hospitals and in the healthcare system, more so than non-Aboriginal. And to summarize, our Aboriginal population, our Winnipeg population, are poorer and don't live as long as non-Aboriginal population. So if you aspire to be mayor of this city, of this great city, and I still think we are a great city, you not only have a responsibility, but you have a moral obligation to demonstrate leadership for creating hope and for creating opportunity with the Aboriginal community. And speaking of opportunity, I think the challenges are well documented, but I think the opportunities are there for the City of Winnipeg. And I'm talking for the corporation of the City of Winnipeg that these people, the guests we have in front of us are striving to lead. Our civic workforce is aging. Whether it's bus drivers, whether it's police officers, paramedics, people who fix our streets, people who cut our grass, people who work in our rec systems, our workforce is aging. And in 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a fairly significant turnover in the City of Winnipeg workforce. So you have an aging workforce here, and you have a young energetic Aboriginal population here. And I think the challenge for one of these people and the City Council going forward are going to be to connect those dots, to make sure when the jobs become vacant on this end, that there are young, capable, qualified Aboriginal people, Métis, First Nation, and Inuit, that are ready to compete and achieve some of those jobs. And that's the challenge. And I'm a firm believer that city staff should be reflective of the population of the city. Approximately, I believe, 10% of our population now in Winnipeg is Indigenous. Well, that means that we should always strive for 10% of workforce that's Indigenous in the city of Winnipeg. We're not there yet. There's a lot of work to do, but we are making progress. And I'm just not talking about the people that work cleaning up our buildings and cutting our grass. I'm talking about Aboriginal staff in the office of the mayor, Aboriginal staff in the office of the CEO, and at the highest levels of administration of the city of Winnipeg. That's what we need to strive for, and I think that's what we should demand from our mayoralty candidates. I'm happy to say that some of that work has started. Over the last 6 years, the city of Winnipeg has invested over $1 million a year in an Aboriginal youth strategy, where we have gone out and we have forged partnerships with nonprofits, Aboriginal nonprofits and nonprofits that serve Aboriginal youth, as well as, I believe, the Manitoba Métis Federation, the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, to try to get some of our youth prepared for some of those jobs that are going to be opening up in the future. We've invested $1 million a year for the last 6 years, but let's face it, that is not enough. We need to dig deeper, we need to find more within our own City of Winnipeg budgets. We have an overall budget, an operating budget of about $700 million at the City of Winnipeg. $1 million is a good start. We've done some great work, and I want to take a few seconds to introduce Rhonda Forgs, who heads up our Aboriginal Youth Strategy, who's at the back. Rhonda, get up, take a wave. She's done tremendous work. She and her staff are now working in the Civic Administration Building, which I think is very important and very symbolic, and we need to continue to build on the work that's been done. I'm a firm believer in partnerships. The City of Winnipeg can't do it alone. We have to forge partnerships with other governments, with First Nation governments, with Métis governments, and with the federal and provincial governments to get on the same page on a plan for our young people. And not only our young people, but principally our young people, because that's where the growth is. But there's challenges in all our demographics. But we need to get on the same page for a plan, something centered around healing, wellness, and getting people prepared to lead productive lives and to work at the City of Winnipeg. There's models for it. In the past, we have core area initiatives 1 and 2. We have Winnipeg partnership agreements, where the 3 levels of government come to the same table with millions of dollars to invest in employment, in Aboriginal employment, in Aboriginal mentorship and training. And we have to involve the grassroots organizations and the political organizations at the onset to help design those programs. So I think a great opportunity would be for whoever is mayor next to bring up the whole idea of another tripartite partnership to address those key challenges facing our population, our Indigenous population. Of course, you have to involve the people that are on the ground floor, the grassroots, in order to get it right. So there's got to be consultation from the get-go. So I think that's why it's important. I've covered a lot of ground in a few minutes, but I think that sets a nice tone, and I'm still trying to figure out why the candidates are down there and we're up here, but there's going to be Q&A. It's a great honor to be here, and I just want to tip my hat to all the candidates. I had the pleasure of running 10 years ago. Unfortunately, I came in second. I know what it's like, and I think everyone has to be commended for putting their life on hold for as long as it takes and putting your name forward and doing basically serving the community. So I commend the candidates that are here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Dan Vandel. Just to let you know, if we get through the program early, just to let all our candidates here so they can prepare themselves, we're going to open the floor to the public so that they can ask any sort of questions they'd like to the candidates. So if we finish up early, we will be sure to make time for that. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Myingen Linklater. Myingen Linklater has been involved in the arts and human rights promotion, and he will speak tonight on the organizations and organizing in the urban indigenous communities in Winnipeg. So I welcome here tonight Myingen Linklater.
Wow. Wow, can you hear me? Or do I have to lower myself down here? Let's try this again. Well, I never thought I'd be surrounded by the scariest band of wild Indians. Because you guys have to understand that you guys scared Gord Steves away from this event. And for an ex-football player, you'd think he'd have a pair of footballs. Aning. Hello, Tansei. My name is Myingen Linklater, and I'm originally from Laxo First Nation out in Ontario. And look around you, what do you see? Aside from the bingo signs, you see a wall of leaders, pathfinders, who broke new ground to advance the rights of Aboriginal people in the city, in Canada, but also to break down economic and social barriers in the city of Winnipeg, to strengthen community by advocating social justice and equal opportunity, to promote and practice self-government within an Indigenous context, whether they are First Nation, Métis, or Inuit, or the urban Aboriginal community. So when you get a chance, take time to look at the pictures and to see who was there. You have people like what's his name, Mr. Krishane there, who was the first Grand Chief of what was it, the Brotherhood of Indians. There we go. So the purpose of my presentation is to provide some opportunities to think about the strengths, assets, and opportunities the urban Aboriginal community can provide to the city of Winnipeg. Background and history and contributions, directions on how to create opportunities in partnership with the pluralism of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and urban Aboriginal communities, and to provide specific civic mechanism ideas for the city of Winnipeg to enhance its relationship with all Indigenous communities. In Winnipeg, I like to think of it as a potpourri of Indigenous nations, with a common history of colonialism and oppression, but diverse in their own language, history, culture, and spiritual beliefs that ground them firmly within their own self-identity. Based upon the 2011 census, close to 72,000 First Nations and Métis people live within the city limits. That's close to 10% of the general population. There are currently 6 nations, not those 6 nations, but Ojibwe, Cree, Dakota, Métis, Ojibwe, and Dene. The community is young, vibrant, and artistic. There are between 50 to 70 community-based organizations who provide programs and services to individuals and families in the areas of education, employment and training, economic development, justice, and whatnot. It has evolved to the point where Aboriginal organizations have become institutions within the urban context, blue chip companies, as you may think about them. And just to provide 2 examples, there's the Center for Aboriginal Human Resource Development and Mamaway. The community continues to build, adapt, and address the social challenges that face our community, but also to celebrate our success. And this is something I want you to know, that these community organizations, the 50, 70 I mentioned, they are nonprofit and operate with a volunteer board. Now, if you think about this, the average size of a community board runs from 5 to 12 people per organization. That means a baseline of 250 to 850 Aboriginal people invest, support, and volunteer their own time back to the community that supported them. Think about that. Here are some fun facts. Well, one, the first treaty was signed between Indigenous peoples and with the settlers in August 1871. Do you know what that was called? Treaty 1? And the Indian Métis Friendship Center is the first friendship center in the Prairie that was first established in the Prairie provinces in 1959, where it provided services and support for urban Aboriginal people, or for Aboriginal people migrating into the urban areas. And this site here specifically was established here in 1992, and before that, from 59 to 92, it operated right beside the giant tiger on Donald Street there. Another opportunity that happened here was the Indian group of Steven, Daphne Ojig, Alex Jenge, Jackson Beery, Eddie Copenis, Norval Morrisseau. They also established a gallery in 1973 in Winnipeg again. And again, the giant tiger, where they introduced and changed the Indigenous art and introduced it to a worldwide audience. And that happened here. And Keno Housing, another example, was the first urban Aboriginal housing provider in Canada, and now has close to 1,000 housing units for urban Aboriginal families. So just to give you a bit of the sense of the history and the resilience that the community has over the 3 generations that it has been evolving since the 1950s. In my experience, the urban Aboriginal community is self-governing. It's not perfect, but it's our community with history, relationships, and bonds. And it comes together when it needs to, and it has the capacity to involve itself with government. For example, the urban Aboriginal community has participated, to give 3 examples, on tri-level initiatives: the Core Area Initiative, Urban Partnership Agreement, and Urban Aboriginal Strategy. The community has come to align itself with government initiatives. For example, the 5-year mental health study that just completed its study on whether or not providing a home for the homeless works. It supports each other in times of crisis by providing volunteers to organizations in trouble and whatever resources it can provide. I remember a murder took place and happened, and everybody that was involved with the organization were in shock. And I remember the support that came out on that very day. And I'm pretty sure that those who would experience that as me, the same as me, can remember that as well, and the support that came from the grassroots organizations. And these are some examples, and don't reflect a sense of community and love for all of the work that we do and the people that we serve. So as we go forward into the future, in a sense, we almost have to, I'm hoping the candidates here will reaffirm the first steps municipalities and Aboriginal peoples with a renewed vigor and opportunities with a second step. And by that, I think it's important to realize to reaffirm the spirit and intent of the treaty relationship with Indigenous communities with respect to Aboriginal and treaty rights, both present and future, to recognize and acknowledge the contributions Aboriginal people have made by naming public spaces and streets after them. For example, Jackson Beardy Way. Support Indigenous arts within the City of Winnipeg via the Winnipeg Arts Council, and to have specific policies for urban Aboriginal arts communities and individuals. Because when you think about it, in the inner city, there are community-based arts organizations that provide programming for young inner city children. You look at Art City, you look at Graffiti Gallery, you look at Nadinaway, and they utilize the arts to enhance the livelihoods of young folks in our city. And the one thing that I think would be crucial in order to create that path forward is to establish a standing Indigenous Relations Committee. Currently, there are 26 committees attached to City Council. This council, or this committee, would establish policy priorities, provide a transparent and accountable body to the community, and it would also serve as a means of providing information and an opportunity to check in with the community on updates and policy direction. closing, aside from I hope I provided you with a sense of the urban Aboriginal community and my extremely witty charm and sense of humor. That's a joke. And how to proceed in creating solutions. Because there is something I want to end with. We are self-governing. And we, First Nations, Métis, or part of the urban Aboriginal community, will always believe in the notion that we have an inherent right to self-government and that we have the solutions. The folks attending here, they want to believe in the next mayor who will listen to them. They want the next mayor to understand the solutions exist. And they want the next mayor to believe in the community and in what it has to offer. Hope, love, and a better future that we call home in the city of Winnipeg. Miigwech.